That's fine. So the homeschool community can tap into these other pathways, right? Learn everywhere.
I mean, we should ask Tim, because if they wanted to take advantage of that.
Yes,
to stop them.
I would think they would want to.
Right, I would think so too.
And, you know, all the different ones that are available, that's gonna be.
Okay,
a question.
Mr. Koski. Mr. Kavanaugh, to do. So the next part of our agenda, since we're in a new session here, is the selection of officers. So we need to select we're required to select a chair. We may select a vice chair, and by means of practicality, we need a secretary for minutes. The chair of the council must be elected by the council members from the home educator membership on the council. And that is per RSA 193-A. So does anyone have any nominations for any of those positions?
I'd like to nominate April for that position,
I'll
For the
accept-
chair?
for the chair.
Yes, I would second that.
Thank you. I will accept the nomination.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a new system where I can see everyone as they speak on Zoom. It pops up and down. So I will start to get used to what everyone looks like and whose name is who.
Yes.
It's the first
thank
time
you.
I'm really able to see everyone as opposed to just a sort of scan of the room and some people behind the camera and not visible. So I apologize if I don't recognize your faces. So who made the motion?
So Michael Koski made the motion to nominate April.
And Heather Barker seconded it.
Thank you.
Any other nominations? Thank you for your nomination and your confidence in me. Thank you for working with me. April Villani has been nominated to be the chair of the 2023-2024 HEAC Council session. We need to do a roll call vote. Heather Barker.
Yes.
Althea, should you do the roll call vote as our secretary? Or do you want me to do it? What's easier for you?
It's much easier if you do it. And also, can I nominate myself to be secretary?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, and I will second Althea as secretary.
Yes.
Yes, you do a fabulous job, Althea.
Absolutely.
Okay, do you want to take this together?
Sure.
Okay, any other nominations for secretary? Okay, so on a roll call vote, April Villani as chair and Althea Barton as secretary of the 2023-2024 HEAC. Heather Barker,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes.
Jill. Oh, we couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jill. Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that's a unanimous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes.
Mhm.
Thank you. We're official.
Wow, yay.
Next up on our agenda is appointments and resignations.
April, can I just say something?
Absolutely.
I'm here, but I don't have a vote, so that's why I'm not voting.
But you're valuable. We're so
Yes,
glad that you're
absolutely. I
here.
don't know about that, but
I think you
anyway,
are.
I'm not allowed to vote on anything, so I'm
Yes.
just here.
Thank you, Senator Ward. So we had 3 people whose terms expired on August 31st, 2023, and that was Michael Koski, Michelle Lavelle, and Jennifer Pereira. And we have 3 new appointments. And that is Jill Grant, Michael Koski, and Diane Nolan. We do currently have vacancies. We have 3 Home Educator Association vacancies. And so we need to get the word out and recruit people to get here, because it's an important effort, and the more we get the word out to the community, the
Do,
better it is.
do you know the organizations?
The
this-
statute does not list what the organizations have to be.
Right.
So it could be any association, as long as they're organized within New Hampshire.
Great, okay.
There are two positions that will not be filled for 2023, 2024, and that's the New Hampshire School Board Association and the New Hampshire Association of School Principals, and I'll let Tim speak to that.
Yeah, and so that's in my report later, but we'll speak to it now. So as I do each year, I reach out to the New Hampshire School Boards Association, and they responded very quickly saying they will not be providing to the commission.
Okay.
So that one is definitely, New Hampshire Association of School Principals. I know Mike asked, and I reached out again, didn't get a response, reached out a second time. They did respond and said they put the word out to their membership, but had not received any responses.
Okay,
So from the department's perspective, we're not gonna keep asking.
sure.
They're aware and their membership just isn't got anybody to volunteer, so. And again, come next year, I'll go to do my due diligence on behalf of the HEAC to request participation from the organizations. We can't force them to.
Right.
Tim, oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
April. If somebody, like, I didn't realize that, because I know you felt that well before, Mike. If there was someone that we could recruit, I just think it's such an important role, like to have that represented so that it is brought back to that membership, so they understand what's going on and the partnership collaboration can actually happen in a rich, authentic way. If there was a way that we could recruit someone.
Yes.
Great,
Yeah.
okay, that's all I wanted to know, thanks, all right, so I'm gonna look into that one.
I guess the wording could have been better on my part.
Yeah, no,
We're
just we
not gonna
can't fill it.
continue.
Yeah,
our
you're not gonna
efforts.
try to
Right.
get somebody, yeah,
But under the law, if
Yeah.
there's someone nominated, the commissioner must consider them. for it.
Yeah. okay,
And I will volunteer as your newly appointed chair, that if you know someone who you believe to be a good nominee, that sometimes people need a personal ask.
yeah,
I'm willing to send an email just to prompt someone
Yeah.
like, you know, you've been recommended. If you're interested, could you please reach out to your organization to request a nomination? Right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes
it's
when
a
someone
good idea.
personally asks, you might think about it a little more. So,
And just to
Someone-
clarify, that was Heather? Heather?
yeah,
who's-
sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah,
I
so-
wish we could have names, but that's okay, you know, name tags. But that's okay, that's fine, thank you.
okay.
I
Any
can do
other-
that,
Big name tag.
these are
Any,
great.
any other discussion about appointments or resignations?
No.
Moving forward is agenda review. Does anyone have anything they would like? Any way they'd like to amend the agenda we have before us? Any additions, changes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move ahead to the minutes of the previous meeting. So I did have some amendments to suggest for those. I don't know if anyone else did. I'll just get those up first. Does anyone else have anything else? Any amendments that they have for those minutes?
No,
Okay, if not, I'm just gonna grab mine. Brought them. When I sat on the school board, I was told that any member, but you need people to vote, right?
Right,
Right, you don't have to abstain,
okay.
yeah. So, at least that's the advice we got from the school board association, and they served on school board. Okay, the first amendment that I would like to propose is on page 5 at the top of the page. And
I'm sorry, you're looking at the minutes?
yes,
Okay,
and Althea, I have these in writing, so if we need to share them afterwards, I'm happy to, should they be approved.
and these are the minutes of what date?
These are the minutes of May 19th. Jen did them.
Okay,
Okay, so currently, it says at the top of page 5, April responded that a council member in her personal capacity said April changed the best practices document discussed at the last meeting. April said she was not at the last meeting. It was her understanding that no votes were taken on best practices, and this was still a working draft. So I would like to amend it to add additional information and change a word. I request that we change it to say April responded that a council member in her personal capacity has asked people to contact the council with the proposed viewpoint and alleged April, then it continues on, that's the change, like inserting that in change, said to alleged. In the fourth sentence, where we pick up with, it was her understanding, I would just ask that we insert, it was her understanding based on the meeting minutes that no votes were taken on best practices. Just to clarify more of the conversation. If you guys need me to read that again, I'm happy to do that. Does anybody need to hear that again?
So are you, if these changes are approved, will you be asking Jen to make the changes?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
So, number one, the word that I used at the meeting versus the word said, I did say alleged. Because it was alleged, not said. And this came about as how did this happen? And I explained what I knew. And then we started diving into the conversation. So just to clarify, I didn't just assume, I got the information from the minutes. So that is my first one. Also down on that page under HEAC best practices number 5. In the first sentence on the, well, let's go to the second line, fourth word, and. I believe when we talked about that, we didn't add in the word and, that we can take that word out. Based on what was proposed, meetings will be posted on the DOE website and at the meeting location at least 24 hours in advance in accordance with RSA 191A requirements.
Yeah, that's just.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's page 4. Wait, what's going on here?
No, that's
It is
page
page
5.
5. Oh, I
Yeah.
have 2 page 5s. That's what's going on here. On page 6. I was really trying to get this right, guys, after a conversation about best practices. On number 7, one thing it was mentioned, I'm going to ask for the insertion of the public comment section of so it should read, the public will have an opportunity to address the council during the public comment section of the meetings. With no other changes on that one. Also on the last paragraph before announcements. This is just a typo. Michelle clarified that posting additional materials beyond the agenda and posting recordings after the meeting with be readdressed. Just that's a typo, will be readdressed. And then there was some information that didn't make it to the meeting. So I'm also going to ask that this information be included. At 5:14, Heather Barker left the meeting.
Yeah.
And then what's missing is the information. Tim read us an email from attorney Liz Brown. And that information didn't make the minute. So I'm going to read what I did my best to get this down. Tim read the email response from attorney Liz Brown for informational purposes. Attorney Brown is employed by the NHED and represents NHED. She can provide technical guidance to the advisory agencies that are administratively supported by NHED. She has a duty to NHED. She believes NHED and HEAC have different interests. In practice, this is not a common occurrence. RSA 91A defines governmental records to include any written communication or other information, whether in paper, electronic, or other physical form, received by a quorum or majority of a public body in furtherance of its official function, whether at a meeting or outside a meeting of the body. The term governmental records shall include the term public records. The word information is defined as knowledge, opinions, facts, or data of any kind and in whatever physical form kept or maintained, including but not limited to written, oral, visual, electronic, or other physical form. As to the obligation to preserve recordings of meetings, an agency is not obligated to retain notes, tapes, or other draft materials used to prepare minutes after final minutes have been approved, prepared, or filed. If draft notes and memoranda or other documents not in their final form and not disclosed, circulated, or made available to a quorum or a majority of the members of a public body and retained after the public body or agency has approved final minutes, they will be subject to inspection. Drafts, notes, and memoranda and other documents not in their final form, which are not disclosed, circulated, or available to a quorum or a majority of the members of a public body are exempt from disclosure. Reference RSA 91-A:5, Roman numeral 9. Courts have not yet addressed whether audio or video recordings made by the individual responsible for drafting minutes solely as an aid to creation of the minutes constitutes governmental records that must be retained as long as its paper counterparts. Assuming recording the meetings is to prepare minutes and those are not shared with the majority of the members of the advisory board, the recordings do not have to be retained. So I'm suggesting that that's added to the minutes to reflect what we received from the attorney.
I think that's important.
Any comments or different recollections than proposed?
So we're gonna get the corrected minutes at some point.
We've got to get them
So we got-
within 5 days, or do you
Yeah.
want the correction and then revisit the next?
So do we
meeting?
have to vote on during that end, or are we good? Can we just accept it?
We can accept the minutes as
As,
amended if
Yeah,
there's
as
something.
amended.
Yeah, let's accept the minutes as amended.
yes,
Okay,
Those are posted by
Yeah.
our office within,
Yes.
once we get them from Althea, we usually post them within 24 hours.
okay. And the second, Heather made the motion to accept the minutes as
I
amended.
second.
Okay. Rebecca is a second. Okay. Althea,
Yes.
okay. Jill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes,
Diane,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes,
Heather,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So the minutes are so accepted, and I'll make sure that we get to your office with those approved corrections. Thank you.
April, when those are done, is there a chance, is that what you were asking, Ruth? Can a copy be sent out to the
Yeah,
group?
you know what, I'll write a note.
That way everybody gets
Right,
one.
so we-
Yep, that'd be
So you
great.
guys are requesting that send it through email, so you make sure
Sure.
you have that?
Yep.
Okay, no problem. Excellent, thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is public comments. I don't know if we have anyone. So right now it appears that we don't have any member of the public attending, but do we have someone who may have called in? Is there a way to check that, if they use the telephone to call in versus
Versus,
like a Zoom internet login, video login?
I guess, they're not on the.
Would they be on there?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no password or access restriction on this meeting, so anybody can come in.
Okay, so let the record reflect that there was no public comment because no public was present.
I have a question.
Yes.
You have down here 10 minutes. Is that what's going to be standard practice? 10 minutes for public comment?
The council hasn't determined that, so not sure. Just wanted to put something there to keep us on track.
All right,
Okay,
perfect.
immediate business. One thing that has come up in the homeschool community has been withdrawal. The ED rule 315.05 small letter B talks about the parent of a student must advise the resident district superintendent. That's the language versus the principal or a designee. And this current family has this, the family who encountered this has now been resolved. but I think it's really important to talk with our people who work with schools. What does that look like? Because I think in this situation, you had a principal who was following the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. And the parent only has to advise, but
Advise.
they were not. They were waiting to receive the superintendent's response before withdrawing the child.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what that typically looks like in schools. If you have a child who wants to withdraw, do you know where they're going? What happens if they don't advise?
Can I?
Yeah,
So
please.
this is super interesting because this actually happened last year. And probably because I'm highly educated on this from being on this group, I actually informed that a school principal that you can't keep the kid there and tell the parent they have to keep sending the kid to school till they had gotten a letter from the superintendent's office. So what happens in schools, right, like lots of other systems, there's a system or protocols or procedures for doing things. So if a parent, typically a parent might, oh, Mike, I'm letting you know, I'm gonna withdraw my kid, I'm homeschooling. So the superintendent would hear from Mike that this family's letting that, and then the superintendent's office informs them, and most schools have historically waited to hear back that the superintendent knows it's happening, and then they do the student. So I think if this group were to do it, or somebody was to put together some simple language, we could, I mean, I certainly could go to the school administrators. I'm on NASHA, which is the special ed administrators. I could certainly talk to the other two groups about letting people know about that advising. So we actually changed our procedure in Merrimack last year
Okay.
after this had come up, and the family was very upset, like, hey, why is this happening? And I explained to the principal, it's actually they literally just have to call and say, or email and say, or text and say, hey, I'm homeschooling my child. That's it. I actually called the Department of Ed to clarify. That's the answer. So I think there's a lag from old rules a long time ago to now. And I think that just an update in informing people somehow, like a little campaign.
If I may.
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
Madam Chair. To reinforce what you're saying,
Yeah.
Heather, I've been getting phone calls about portfolio
Yeah.
reviews.
Yeah.
And the schools are telling them, you need to go to the Department of Education, and that law has changed quite a while ago.
A long
We don't
time.
do portfolio reviews.
Right.
And so as part of this, now that this rule
Mhm.
ED 315 has been adopted. And I'll talk about this in my report. One of
Yeah.
my next chores is to develop a webinar to
Perfect.
offer to the school district.
Sure.
And try to pull everybody to the current rules, and using this as
Yeah.
a recent adoption of the rules to be the mechanism to,
Yeah, there's
do that.
definitely a lag, right?
yeah. Because I think, as you said, as long as the parent notifies.
Yeah.
To me, there's two different things, is you're withdrawing your child. And then you're doing an intent to home educate notification. The intent to home educate has to be within 5 days of withdrawal.
Mhm.
Right.
And then we're obligated, the participating agencies, to respond, acknowledge in writing. I say, it doesn't say in writing, but we do writing with a letter, within 14 days.
I think that's
And
great for
so-
people to know what's happening.
Yeah, and it's important, and another discussion down the road is, the value of that letter from
Mhm.
the department or from the district.
Yeah.
When it comes to truancy, or I had, the place in Portsmouth, Strawberry Bank asked me to home ed kids have like cards, because they get
Oh.
a discount. And I'm
Okay.
thinking, well, we do, it's supposed to get an acknowledgement letter,
right,
maybe we can use that.
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, so Heather, if you have some time, if you would mind helping me.
I would
with
be
that,
happy to do
developing
that. You know, I'm
because you know
retired
the
now.
inside- Yeah,
Right.
you know the inside workings of the.
I
schools
do.
right now. So
Yes.
that's Very helpful.
Both at the systems level and at the building level,
Yeah.
so
Right.
I'd be happy to do that.
And it's a little concerning, I mean, right, individuals, and then you have the individual school districts, but, you know of a personal encounter with that last year, everybody's getting ready, ramping up their school year. I did speak with a former longtime member of HEAC, who did give me some background of why this is in the rules versus the RSA. And why this was placed in the rules is because they wanted to give families a mechanism to advise the school that their child is home educating and not truly truant,
100%.
in order to avoid a visit from a truant officer or a DCYF. So that is why this is in the rules, not necessarily the RSA as a safeguard for families.
And that came up the first year I was on this committee, people were telling those stories about that very topic. So you have the schools who are responsible for attendance and making sure kids go to school, and you have families who have said to somebody, maybe informally or whatever, I'm homeschooling my student, and then people are showing up at their house. Remember, there were people asking about that first year, and that was that dissonance, so this should take care of that with some
Yeah.
education of everybody.
I mean, I'm curious about the opinions of people on this board. Do you think this rises to the level of approaching, to request a change in that section of the rules to indicate something instead of just advise the resident district superintendent and maybe request that our designee be added to the rule? In order that, school staff can realize it doesn't just have to be the superintendent, right? It's not, this doesn't say you have to get the approval from the superintendent to withdraw. And I don't know if, and I get dotting your i's and crossing your t's. I totally understand that. But if it's the language that is holding people up, how do we help people out on both sides? Or all sides, really? Yes, Tim.
So I had the question you just answered for me, is why is this in rule and not law? I looked at it today. But in doing that, I also looked at the compulsory attendance law.
That's the
In the
other.
compulsory attendance law, every reference is to superintendent.
100%.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
think it would be consistent
okay,
to
Yeah.
notify the superintendent. When I get calls, I've had difficulties with a couple schools.
Yeah.
Where principals have refused to approve the home ed program,
There it is.
and they're saying the kid's truant, even though the parents have notified. I always tell them, contact the superintendent directly, and I give them the name and phone number of that superintendent.
okay,
Just because that particular district, multiple problems. The first two problems, the superintendent fixed it right away. So there's a difficult principal.
Right.
And the superintendent is the ultimate authority in that district.
Right.
Other than the school board.
yes, Mike,
I would assume it's also where the records are kept, so this homeschool letter of intent
Yes,
are kept in the
Yes.
central office, not.
That's correct.
that's true.
okay,
So it needs to
Yeah.
get there anyway. and
Yes.
It would be just as efficient for the parent to
Yes.
contact the superintendent.
Yeah, so how we handled it at the building level was that if the principal or their designee was notified, the principal would say, dear Mrs. Barker, thank you for informing us of your intent
Right.
to home educate your student. I will send this to the superintendent's office and send it up. So so it wouldn't get stuck somewhere. We ask people to do that.
But doesn't the RSA say that? The RSA 193A say that?
No.
no,
It says you
it's,
withdraw from school or district and shall notify the commissioner of education or
well, there's
resident.
withdrawal and there's notification, there's two different things.
Right, that's what,
So we're talking about withdrawing,
right, that's what it says. A child who withdraws from a public school
right,
is what it says in the RSA.
but we have a rule that particularly that says the parent of a student currently enrolled in a public school shall advise the resident district superintendent of the child's withdrawal from attendance in public school on or before the date of the home education program shall begin. So this goes
So it's the
a
last part.
little bit
it's the
further
last
to
part that's
explain
the
how
issue.
do you withdraw?
And it's really important because that stops the part of, because one of the other conflicts was people were withdrawing children, informing someone else, not the school, which informed
Right.
the compulsory ed law and the need to send somebody out. Why is the kid not in school? Thus
Right.
the conflict. So I think this is really important to have that in there.
Yeah, but the RSA still says you have to notify the superintendent,
Yes, yes.
but just the last.
Are
part,
the,
that's it.
our participating agency,
Yes,
yes,
yes, non-public school. Yeah.
yes, are the.
Yeah.
Yes, for the commissioner's
Okay.
office. Yes, Tim,
And again, just to reinforce, the point. So what could happen is if they inform the Department of Education, like, so now they can inform the Department of Education, my office, that they're doing homeschool. I cannot share that information with the school district.
That's
Right.
important.
and I,
My solution so far has been to tell the school district to ask for a copy of the acknowledgement letter that may or may not have been sent.
and I think that's also the
That's-
distinction, withdrawal
Yeah,
and notification, those are two different
right,
things.
right.
So,
Mhm.
and I think that's key, so. Do you think maybe if this might be worked on in a webinar that may be happening with the schools.
Yeah,
Do you think it might be a good thing to also add, I know you're working on an FAQ?
yes.
Yes.
on the list.
Okay, I know, yes, I know, okay,
Can we pause just for a second? Is there
Absolutely.
still a quorum here or are we
Yes.
missing someone? We're good?
we have a call,
Great. So I'm gonna step out. So can,
yes,
Althea, can the record show that I'm gonna step out for a few minutes to, do a quick meeting with the district at 3:07 PM?
Yep.
Be back.
thank you, yeah, okay. All right, and
Has someone else joined the meeting or are, okay.
thank you for asking. Any other discussion or questions about withdrawing? And who to advise? And why it would be superintendent versus a principal or designee?
Question that's a bit of an aside, is there a form put out by the department, Tim, for parents who want to notify?
So the department has template
Okay,
intent to notify
Yes,
of
that's
home
what I was looking
education,
at,
but
yes.
not withdrawal.
okay,
And when I've
yes.
had this questions from districts, I say, I ask. Students are withdrawn from your school for many different reasons, not just home education. What is your process? Because that's different than the notification of home education.
Right, and my reason for asking is I'm seeing forms
Yes,
that I have never seen before. So there is a template.
there is one
For
that
notification.
you may, but are not required. to
Yes.
use as a
Yes.
part.
It's been there for a
That will be
Yes.
updated. to reflect the new law.
Yes.
Great.
I know when we began our home education journey, talking to the folks at HSLDA, they also, if you remember, provided you with a form for
Yeah.
withdrawal.
Right.
That they advised you.
Yeah.
To use, so that the school was aware that your child would not be truant. So there's, I think, multiple organizations probably putting out sample forms, and it's great, right, to
It
have
is
that.
very
You
helpful.
have to use this form, and if you don't use this form, yeah,
And I can say our office, will accept. A notification in any form, as long as it contains the information required by the law. So my parents will send me an email. And that's accepted. It doesn't have to be on any prescribed form.
okay. Good to know. Any other questions or comments regarding withdrawal? Hearing none, we'll move right along to rulemaking and legislative updates. First up is ED 315 home education, and we will need to take action on this for the RSA to review and comment on the final proposal, which was approved by the state board yesterday.
Or the adopt.
Adopted,
Yes.
excuse me,
Yeah.
adopted. Thanks for making sure I get
Yeah.
that language corrected. Okay. Would anyone like to give us an update on that? Tim, can I tap you?
Yeah, and so there was a little confusion, I think, about this. So I think it's the terminology in the rulemaking process. And so the HEAC voted to approve the rules back in April.
The draft, yeah.
They went to GELCAR, came out of GELCAR. And at that point, they were considered the final proposed rule, which is what the RSA involving HEAC speaks to.
Yes.
At the advice of our attorney, Liz Brown, I emailed them to tonight on the 16th of June. And in the email mentioned, do you want to hold a meeting in July to talk about this? I didn't get a response from Mike. Frankly, I didn't expect one because they were identical with two technical changes to what HEAC had already approved.
Right.
So that was the final proposed rule. And it was, according to our attorney, properly noticed to HEAC through the chair and actually through Klein and the commissioner were also asked that question. Because we understood there was some concern that we hadn't followed the process, they added, and we said, yes, that's how it works, and you indicated as the chair of the State Board of Education, that's how we are members. So we felt we had fulfilled that obligation. I understand there was some concern that some folks thought we hadn't. And if we want to talk about it moving forward, if the entire board wants to get noticed with this, the department could certainly do that. because it's a gray area as far as it doesn't say the entire board has to know this, and the chair, it's, so that's what we did.
Right.
At the advice of our, so.
And likewise,
Yeah.
later on, when we get to talking about our best practices, we may want to speak about our best practices meeting date, because to get in front of that.
Right.
We could change our meeting date as well, to have an opportunity to discuss. So, I think the biggest point is it happened, it was a timing issue, right? There's only 45 days after it comes out of jail car to adopt it. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so is it basically dead if it's not adopted within 45 days? That's my understanding. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you have to revert back to the old rules, which do
Okay.
not adhere to the current law.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
already far behind, right? The law
Right, right.
Okay.
is June 22.
Okay,
And now we're just now adopting.
Right.
The rules that match up. So our website has rules that don't match the law, which is very confusing for the public. But that's our process in the state.
but the process was
Yeah.
going along
Yeah.
in good faith. I think that's
Yeah.
what. I think that's what's important. It's not that something was trying to be pulled over.
Right.
HEAC's
No, I guess
eyes
so.
or anything
Right,
like
I
that.
think just,
Go
a
ahead.
note saying that they didn't change, there would have been, just mailed us, that would have been okay. But
Yeah.
Fine.
And again, we notified Mike and I
Yes,
think
and-
explained that in
and-
the email.
Yeah.
And I will apologize for not responding. It was a timing
Yeah.
issue where I was not checking my HEAC email regularly in July. So. that
And,
was-
and again, on my side, perhaps I should have followed up, but I understood the
Yeah.
board, the council had already approved these
Right.
virtually exact same rules,
Right.
so I was not surprised.
Yeah.
When I didn't hear back from Mike, if we didn't, we
Yeah.
got together at the meeting, for the
Correct.
end report, a
Right.
couple days late,
Yeah.
so. So again, if in the future, if council would like everybody to be emailed these types of notifications, it's just. That's not the norm, I guess.
I guess if the council should decide to take that up as best practices, we have the option to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
However, go ahead, Mike.
Would the timing probably always be the same on this, where it's happening during summertime?
Oh, no, the rulemaking process depends when it starts
Okay.
to when it ends,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was just thinking if. If it were a summertime issue, only one person's notified, they have to be on vacation, or they just.
Right.
Then it might be best to have other people. on
Mhm.
that.
And it's easy for me to do that, because
Right.
that's, again, following the advice of our council, this was the process.
Sure, yeah, no,
Right. And
always
another,
good advice from council.
right. Another way to think about this is, the RSA is right on the agenda. But it's to submit any notice of proposed rulemaking and any final proposed rule to the Home Education Advisory Council established for review and comment. I mean, it's important that we have a chance to review and comment, but what's really great about this RSA is if we don't, let's say we're not convening because our best practices say we're only going to meet through June, right? We will still receive notification, right? It's not that we're going to miss it.
Right.
We will be notified to review it. Yes, it would have been nice to have that opportunity, but I really think it was just a timing issue. This time, and there's a tight deadline. It's not that you can change that, right? That's a legislative action that's decided by,
Yeah, that's a
Law.
rulemaking process,
Yeah.
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 We-
So I think I will have to speak very kindly, because when I was contacted, actually while I was away with my family, and I decided to talk to this person, a couple of people, and at first it was almost like, bells and whistles going off, like, oh, what did they do here, right? And then when I explained that there's this 45 day timeline, it was received a little bit better, and I think just the conversation needs to be going forward. How do we make sure it happened, right? It's water on the bridge. How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Right? So, and that's something we can probably talk about later, but they have been adopted and there were no changes from the initial proposal to the final.
There were two technical changes.
Two technical changes. Okay. Does anyone have any comments about the final proposal, which has now been adopted? So it's now the adopted rules. When are these effective, Tim? Are they as of today or?
Yeah, I believe it's when they're adopted by the state.
As of
So they-
yesterday?
Yeah, so they were
Yes, sir.
perspective.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so we will, it takes up to 6 months for them to get on the stage website, so we will put them on our webpage as a PDF. But if you are looking for rules from the state website, it takes a long time for them to get.
all right, Heather has rejoined our meeting. Are you
Yes.
officially rejoining, Heather?
I am officially rejoining.
Okay, Heather is rejoining our meeting at 3:17 PM. So one thing that was brought to my attention was in 315.02, that's the definition under D, educational progress. The and was struck out of and or. The and or language is what's in the RSA. The parents that I spoke with, the concern was, well, she was thankful, number one, that the RSA overrides the rules, and talking to this parent. But the concern is, that if it was an or, right, educational progress means growth in learning commensurate with aid, ability, or disability within the child's individual home education program chosen by the parent, that she felt like the parent I spoke with, the or is more restricted, that you could only look at one of those things. Now, I did have the occasion to speak with Attorney Brown about that, and she explained in the rulemaking process, and hopefully Senator Ward can give us more information about this, since you sit on Joe Carr, correct?
Yeah.
I was told that
How rude.
in the rulemaking process that you're not allowed to have and/or.
I don't know anything about that.
You don't know anything about that, okay. But
All
when
I
I,
do is I go to the things and I listen to what they have, whether or not it follows the legislative intent.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what we look at.
oh, okay. So when I talked to Liz about it, we talked about when you eliminate the and you leave the or, the intent is to leave it less restrictive, that it could be actually any one of those things. So, but the parent I spoke with was concerned, like, well, she doesn't want her child, the growth just to be evaluated because I have a child with a disability and this child made a little bit of progress. Like, she really felt like the whole child should be looked at. And so when you have the and in there and you have the option of and or, that educational growth or progress is more of the picture of how the child's doing. So I promised that I would bring that forward. And I will. You'll find that I may
That's
or may not
okay.
believe things personally, but if people ask me to bring things forward, I
That's-
absolutely will. So.
You should.
Now, my question is, we get to review and comments. Does anyone have any other reviews or comments on this?
I have a quick comment just to make, please. We were discussing this and or, and whether or not there was what are the benchmarks for claiming that disability? For example, someone is not attaining their educational, where they should be, and every kid is different.
Right.
And we should be accommodating. We should, because not every kid is able to perform at grade level anywhere. It's just because they're just norms, right? But would there be a requirement for documentation to demonstrate that disability? Is there a burden of proof on the parent to show why they didn't reach that educational attainment?
As our liaison, do you have an answer to that?
No.
Okay.
And I think that on a broader statement is, so the rules were adopted, it does not mean we cannot start a new rulemaking process if there
Right.
are other issues. That's a process in itself where the petition should do that. And so I have a couple other items since I've been working in the program that I would like rules changed or advise that the rules should be adjusted. And so I think Jill's question is a good one. but I think it may be for a future
Right.
discussion of, we want to look at the rules and see if there are changes, now that they've been adopted, are there changes that we want to advise?
Right.
Or the council would like to advise the commissioners to consider, or the council would like the commission to open the rules back up. I think maybe it would be prudent to take a couple meetings to come up with what the council would like to see revised, rather than saying, we want to open the rules right now and then talk about it.
Right.
Sure.
That's just a thought.
Could I,
It's up to
I'm
the
sorry, I
council.
just popped in late, so you guys are looking at, thanks, Mike, D. So, or disability, so I'm curious what the intention was of the legislators. When they wrote this, are they referencing educational disabilities? So that's under, those would be like the 13 categories under IDEA, or are they talking in general terms? I think that's what the question is.
Yeah.
What was the intention around that? If they were in a school district, would they have an IEP? Because
Right.
progress looks really different, right?
Yes.
Or,
Right.
a student who might be eligible for a 504 plan because they need reasonable accommodations to level the playing field. So I would agree that I think that language probably needs clarification.
So I believe, but I cannot get to it right now, and I really hate to speak without seeing it. But there was recently a bill.
Yeah.
Which gave more freedoms to home educated students. Previously, there was a 40th percentile listed.
I remember that.
Yes, and so
They
the
had to meet
bill,
that.
But that's gone, yeah.
That
yeah,
is
the
gone.
bill eliminated that. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
we did it last year, right? We read it.
Yeah.
Probably this thing.
Yeah, it was part of
Yeah.
this change. So unfortunately, I can't access the internet to look at that right now. So I would encourage you to look at the links that are in the document to the rules and the RSA itself. I believe the bill link is in there as well,
Mhm,
and compare what was there to what's there now.
yeah.
And if you're not satisfied with the answer, we can certainly bring it up at a future meeting.
I think the way it's worded is actually calling out that a student with a disability's educational progress is definitely gonna look different than age or ability. So I think
It
that's a
will.
good,
It's
And
a
I
good thing.
think issue about removing the 40th percentile was,
Yeah.
why are we holding home educators to a different standard
Yes.
than
hundred
students who
percent
are
agree
in,
with you.
who are in a public or private school?
Mhm.
And that, I believe, was the rationale with bringing that forward.
I remember in Concord, when I
Yes.
was the home evaluator for the district, when parents had to bring their children in or take a test or whatever, working with families whose children had disabilities.
Right.
And writing reports that reflected that because they were so concerned about the 40th percentile.
Right. Also, educational progress, that can be shown through your annual reviews, through your
Yeah.
portfolios that you
Right.
keep as well
Yeah.
of the student making progress, whether you decide to use a standardized test or a
Right.
portfolio review. So that is how home educators show
Mhm.
or prove that there has been educational,
Mhm.
progress.
Mm.
But the
Was it
reason is
not-
to try to get things more on par.
Was it not HEAC's recommendation to put and or disability into the rules initially? Wasn't that HEAC's recommendation?
Yes, and so
Okay.
what I've been informed is and or cannot go into.
Right.
And so this is felt or was more.
Right.
Was broader and it benefited parents more. than-
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Agreed.
one, and this,
Yeah.
or, yeah,
Right.
And that's the department's approach on a lot of these.
I think that's
Right.
great,
As broad as
Yes.
possible.
yeah.
However, as a parent, I would not want my student simply evaluated on his or her disability. Like, we only expect this because you have autism, right? If we limit it to an or, that's why I'm also grateful that the RSA has and or, right? We need to give kids, expect the same of all kids, don't assume competence, basically, at the end of the day, so. Okay.
Well, or the ability to meet competence in some form,
Absolutely.
or
Absolutely.
in some way,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great
Yep.
way to put it too.
Yeah.
So yes, so that was part of this educational progress, one of the changes because of the bill. Change. Yes, Tim.
And perhaps a future solution to this may be to just create language that does not rely on the term indoor. Right?
There you go.
Let's
So smart.
Reword it. It means both intents.
Yes.
Right.
Both sets of parents.
Well, we're not attorneys, so,
No,
so, yeah. Okay, any
And I-
other?
Yeah,
comments or
I
questions?
think just to kind of round back and just to clarify too, I mean, I think it's critically important that parents have the choice to be able to home educate or send their child to a private school or public school. But I think making sure, like you said, we're treating all students equally. I just, unfortunately, I think my comment comes from being a private school administrator and seeing parents come in and try to enroll their children here, and they're grade levels behind, but there's no evidence of them meeting the requirements of doing any portfolio reviews, of doing any testing, of doing any of those things. But then neither was there anything to back up why those children were behind. There's no document of a disability, there's no document of a of any reason why there would be diminished educational attainment. And so I think just coming from the student's perspective, making sure that that we've got their best interest in mind too, that but then also protecting the parents at the same time. Like, I feel like there should be some stronger language in there that kind of speaks to both of those.
Yeah, I think as it's stated now, the parent needs to do that annual evaluation through many different things. If that doesn't happen, and they don't bring any evidence, then that's kind of negligence on the parents' part, because they haven't met the requirements. I don't know how we prevent that.
I see that a
That's a
lot.
challenge.
I
Right?
see
And-
that a lot. I would
It's-
say half my homeschool parents, I ask them when they come and I say, where's your portfolio review? Where's your standardized test? They don't have it.
So I think what's also important to realize is that the portfolio stays with the parent. Like,
Mhm.
it can be
That's right.
requested to be seen, but a family doesn't have to hand that over.
Right.
That remains the property of the
Right.
family.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're a public school or private school administrator and you wanted to see where a child is at, and you're trying to evaluate their progress to see where they would fit into your school, requesting that is the same thing as requesting a report card. So just another picture of a whole child and where they're at, and their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's certainly not something I keep, but it's something that I request for as a kind of a bigger picture. It's not fair for me just to sit a kid down and do a 30-minute little test with them to see where they're at. I like to see more evidence of what they've been doing. But no, about half the families that come and try to if they don't have any documentation at all.
And what typically happens for a child who doesn't produce documentation, or, maybe someone who's new to the country? What happens in schools for those children?
Take
Right,
them. I mean,
right.
well, in those cases, we evaluate them and we make decisions based on, best practices. But my point was more to the laws requiring home educators to do those things. And so that's not always necessarily
Yes.
happening.
Right, so the question is the oversight, really what you're really
Right.
getting into is, so for example, in a school, if a family showed up and there were no records whatsoever, you're trying to find records or get records. In the meantime, you're figuring out, usually based on age, students, because it's are gonna be socially placed somewhere while they figure it out. The difference here is, and I think that's what, is it Jill, what you're
Mhm.
talking to? Is at the school level, or the systems and protocols in place there. So there's rules.
Right.
And when someone's not following the rules, there's what you have to do next. So for example, if the kid isn't coming to school, you're sending the truant officer out, you're trying to engage the parent, whatever, trying to get the student in school. And then you deal with that, however, whether that, you might end up, it's rare, but ultimately you could be looking at something like educational neglect if you had to. Very, very rare does that actually happen. But I think what Jill's talking about is when a student shows up, these are the rules, this is what you need to do. My experience is 98% of the families I dealt with when I was the homeschool liaison for Concord had all the stuff, did it every year faithfully. It was a tiny percentage of families for different reasons, had different stories and stuff going on. And it was, the homeschooling thing really wasn't like potentially the best option maybe, or there was other stuff that precipitated a choice to do that, that needed to be worked through. In this case, the question now becomes is who's doing the oversight if someone's not doing it, because in the end, there's a child who may or may not be receiving any education whatsoever.
Right.
Those are, I don't know that you, that's a high number when I hear 50%. I think it's a teeny tiny percentage of children. So I don't want this, like, if this were like, people talking about this, like
Oh, yeah.
subsequent to this meeting is, oh, 50% of the kids that are coming back into a school or going to a private school haven't had any education. That has not been my experience anywhere I've worked. I don't know how the oversight works for if somebody's not doing it. At the end, if a student shows up, whether it's in a private school or a public school, you take the student where there's at, you move them forward. That's how it works, right?
Right.
You have to do what you gotta do, right? You do what you gotta do,
Right.
but again, there's still that piece, you know, it kind of going back to the original part where, you know, where is that equal treatment, right? If I had a kid at my school who wasn't attaining you know, educational progress, I would have to figure out why. What is it that's going on that's keeping them from not progressing as they should, right? And so we need to really dig into why is it they're not meeting grade level expectations. And you know, and I think for you know, if you it just I feel like it's just protecting the parent, putting some kind of a language in there to say, you know, I've really tried to get my child to do XYZ. And I don't really think, you know, based on their standardized tests or based on, you know, homeschool portfolio reviews, they're really not meeting those benchmarks as I think they should. Why? Right. And so, you know, I think that ultimately it's protecting the parent and the child, you know, as the parent trying to figure out how their kid best learns and, you know, where those gaps in their learning are and why they're there.
So I think that, you know, we have to not expect kids who are in a private school or a public school, are homeschooled, or in the Learn Everywhere program to have a universal program.
I agree.
Absolutely. I 100%. That's why we have school choice.
I think we have to be very careful about saying, where is the oversight? Because that's certainly, that almost comes across as a presumption that parents are not doing the right thing. They
Right.
are compliant with the law. And that is a very inaccurate statement from parents that I've encountered.
Right.
Also the community at large. And it's a very dangerous
agree.
statement as well.
Yeah.
Because then we do have people who are opposed to home education that will come and,
Right.
for lack of better word, attack home education.
Right.
And right now, we're very fortunate to have the freedoms that we have.
Agreed.
And paint home education in a bad light. If there's bad players, people who are not compliant, we need to deal with those on a one-on-one cases
Yeah,
and be
not
careful
change all
not
this.
to paint
Yes.
the community, the whole community at large.
Right.
In that.
Right. And I think that the flip side to that is not oversight necessarily, but accountability, right? So in education, right, making sure that homeschool parents know what the expectations are and where they can meet those expectations. Who are people who can do portfolio reviews? You know, where can they get the standardized tests? You know, and how to do those things. So I think you know, I think that is on the flip side. I mean, that as opposed to oversight, I mean, but that requires someone who's reaching out. Us knowing who those homeschool families are is just reaching out to them and letting them know where those resources are.
I think there are, I mean, I think she should be in contact with some of the leaders of organizations that these families could reach out to, or she could reach out to and give them recommendations as to who to speak to if they need some help
So
with their programs.
Jill, I'm just curious because I'm not familiar with your school. and it could be any school that you worked at that was a private school, but does your school act as a participating agency right now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry if I missed that earlier.
That's okay.
You know, as
So
that
that's great.
participating agencies, they can certainly reach out and offer assistance to families. I know in the
And we do.
homeschooling education,
Yeah,
yeah,
we do.
I mean, you can't make, right, you can lead a horse to water, you can't
Right.
make it drink.
Right.
Right.
But
Right, but
I-
that's it. But I mean, but again, but it's, I guess who's making sure that that's happening? Do you know what I mean? I know I know we keep going
That's
around and
That's why there
around,
is no actual oversight. It's
Right.
not
Right,
written
so
into
we
the
keep going
Right,
around and
the
around
law's
and around.
absent
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, and there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance where
Yeah.
we're not, coming down on people saying we're gonna, send your kids off to DCYF for educational neglect if you're not doing these things, right? Because that's not what we're saying. But we're saying is, we need you to take care of your children, and there needs to be some more clarity in the law that, I mean, I even, when I was sending out those letters in response to letters of intent, I wasn't even sure if I could include in there, we do, portfolio reviews and standardized tests, and you're welcome to participate. So I sent it as a separate letter. So there's really just not any expectation from people who are participating agencies in how they interact with people who are submitting those letters of intent either. Like they're literally in a file in my office, and we have them on a homeschool mailing list. These are the dates of and that's really what I do with them. They're just sitting in a file.
So
Jill,
Jill.
if
this
I
is
could ask a question,
go
Jill.
ahead. Yeah.
How long have you been in this position, or how long have you been with this experience?
So this is my second year as principal at Trinity.
Okay, and so the question I wanted to ask was, if you had been in that position, say, for 10 years, has there been a change in recent years, in the last couple of years, or do you have any knowledge of what the experience of that school was before you arrived?
Do you with relation to participating agency in homeschool?
Yeah, and in relation to how many people you're seeing coming in with students who have no paperwork, who have not done evaluations,
Yeah,
that kind of
so
thing.
I've been teaching here. This is my 8th year at Trinity. I was a teacher prior to this. I taught middle school English here for 6 years before being in this role. And there were, this is the particularly post-COVID. We're seeing an uptick of these, post-COVID families coming in. We very rarely before COVID had families who were transitioning between homeschool and Trinity. Now we're getting a lot of them. We're getting a lot of families who are now done with the homeschool piece, and now they're bringing their children. They don't want to send their children to public school, so they're coming here. And so we have a lot, probably about 15% of our new families are former homeschool families.
And so those are people who had their children at a public school, maybe started homeschooling during COVID, and now are coming to Trinity. Okay.
Yeah, or their kids came of age for kindergarten during COVID, and they chose not to enroll their children, and now they're enrolling.
Mhm.
In your school, Jill, right?
In my school, yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Are they EFA students?
Some of them.
I think it's important to recognize, though, that kindergarten is not required in the state.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm
Mhm.
just listening. You know what I'm thinking, Jill? I think that you're touching on multiple things. I'm not
I am.
sure changing the rules or the law is actually it. I think what you're talking, so two sort of streams here. One is families who are looking to add on, because I actually think that's something that's really rich that got added over the last couple of years. And previously the districts did it, but some didn't, which was having students who are home education students participate in things at school, kind of ad hoc, picking and choosing sports, all that. So
Yep.
kids can have a home education and have a rich opportunity to participate with their peers at school, right? That's a nice thing. So I'm curious. So that has happened too. Is some of what you're seeing, so I'm more of this description is different dynamics or scenarios, but you have the pathway where somebody might be home educating, and they want to use you now as a place that's providing the education for the home education. That's great. That's wonderful. That was one of the intentions of all of this work that's been done, right? To parents could choose how their child's getting their home education, so to speak. The other pathway is, it sounds like you have kids who are enrolling in your school, no longer being home educated. And what you're seeing there is in some of those students, they may or may not have had education, or it's not documented. Really, it's, you can't say they haven't had education. It's
No,
not documented, and you're seeing gaps or whatever, which are common because we're seeing them in all students, right? The data is just
Oh, yeah.
that kids are, you know, a year to year and a half behind in
Oh, yeah.
math, all kids.
Mhm.
And all kids are somewhere between 6 months and a year behind in reading unless they were super accelerated to begin with. So I would want to have more information before I started digging in and changing stuff. I don't know. I'm just talking from like 35 years experience.
Sure,
in the
sure.
field.
Part of
Just-
it, yeah, part of it too is, I think, and I think there's a third component to this too, is making sure that we're not missing reaching out to those homeschool families, right? Because I mean, we have two families, two kids who are former homeschool kids. I mean, again, they were homeschool, but they were later on diagnosed with dyslexia or dyscalculia, right? So specific learning disabilities, that would not have, may or may not, I mean, perhaps they would have been later on diagnosed or been discovered later on. But there's, I I guess the core issue that I'm trying to get at is finding ways to not miss these kids, is to make sure that they have the information that they need, that they know where they can go, and that we're not, because we're obligated by child find to make sure that um, we're referring kids, right? And how does that happen in the homeschool community, right? So just finding ways to bring the community together so that we can give the kids their best shot at having a successful education no matter where they are.
I love your enthusiasm and desire to support all kids. And I see, no, it's the same stuff everybody struggles with, whether you're in a public school or whatever. Ultimately, it's the decision of a parent raising a child, right? Whether or not they want to pursue. So my field is special education and general ed, but I've spent most of it in special education. We do have a duty to child find, and that is done the same way for home education parents that it is for all parents, sending out emails, putting up notices, putting it on social media, all the different ways that any other parent, regardless of how their child's being educated, school districts and LEAs do that, right? And in this case, it sounds, and I love that passion around, as a private school provider, wanting to do that work too, as an agency or non, private school. At the end of the day, ultimately, a parent decides what's going to happen for their child, whether they're going to public school, they're going to do, learn everywhere, they're going to be in home education, they're going to be home education, go to the school for some stuff. So ultimately, they're going to make those decisions. And rarely, but on occasion, regardless of whether or not they're in a public institution, a private institution, or home institution, there are challenges and all kinds of things happening, dynamics that make it hard for a student. So finding those students and the dyslexia or whatever, those kinds of things, whether or not they receive that intervention, I mean, that ultimately all lays, that's all part of this sort of the tapestry of what we're doing here, but that's not really in our, I don't know whether that's in our purview.
Yeah, I think I'd sum it up like the cost of the freedom to choose
Yes.
is this personal responsibility placed on the
Yes.
parent.
That's true.
And we can't intervene in that. There's 1,000 kids I've met over my career that would like to have the parents intervene on their behalf
Yeah.
in public school.
Yeah.
And I don't have that authority to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a harsh reality of having freedom
Yeah.
to educate.
Which is why the law doesn't actually have oversight in it,
Yes.
because the expectation is that we are responsible human beings and we're gonna take care of it, right? That's, I love how you said that, Mike, thank you.
And
That's a good perspective.
the evidence is not there to support something to the contrary,
Right.
right? So,
Jill, I'd be happy to chat with you more about this. It's something I've thought a lot about.
Yeah.
And straddled this world
Mm.
for
Yeah.
30 years, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. This has been something, it's very disheartening to, turning away kids from here and wishing that there was a way to help, I guess.
Mhm.
So thank you.
thank you. Any other questions or comments on ED 315? I do have a question because the RSA says we need to review and comment. We have reviewed and comment. But I assume if this council had a comment that they wanted forwarded to the state board, we would work to put that in writing, but I just want to clarify at this point, we don't have a statement per se to send to the state board.
April, could you please repeat the RSA that you
Yes.
mentioned?
RSA. Let me find it on here. 193-A:3.
Mhm.
It's on the agenda as well. I'll be,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just not,
because I think the important thing is we could review and comment all we want,
Mhm.
but if there's a message that we want to get to the state board, we would have to form a statement as a council.
Mhm.
Does anyone feel a need for HEAC to form a statement to the council? State Board of Education, I should say. Okay. Hearing none?
May I,
Yes, please.
as chair, if you receive complaints, please direct them to me. I'd be happy to speak to anybody about any complaints about the process of adopting those rules. If they have concerns about that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Feel free to come to one of our meetings and make a public comment.
Do
Right,
that.
we would love for
Sure.
people to attend. The next item is not, it says A, but it's really B. HB 308, 2023. It's a bill related to a quorum for meetings open to the
Yes.
public to include remote presence. And that was passed into law and it becomes effective October 3rd, and it will affect our council. So does anyone have any update on that? Yes.
I can speak to that. So, Jill was present at the, which council, am I at? Non-public school advisory council. And that council took a vote to adopt the provisions of the law that would allow the 1/3 in person and allow remote attendance to make up the quorum once it became adopted. So our next meeting, for example, the non-public school advisory council, we can't do that because that's in September 26th.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I checked with our attorney. She said she met with all the other attorneys, I guess, and there's some gray areas around this, but she said it would be okay to proceed we want, if the council chooses to vote to adopt the revisions of allowing members to attend remotely. Upon adoption of this on October 3rd.
And if we take no action, does our best practices stand and we would have to comply with?
The 50% plus.
Mhm.
The law states that the body has to take a vote to adopt.
Oh, it
To
does.
allow for the 1/3 with remote participation.
So what
for
would that
clarity,
look like?
So
Yes.
1/3, what this law change does is instead of having 50% plus
1/3.
for journal
Yeah.
form, it's 1/3 in person.
Yeah.
But you still need to maintain 50% plus with remote.
With remote.
And you have to have reasons for, that's the gray area that I was asking our attorney about, because the way the language reads, the board needs to vote to allow members to attend remotely. I was asking, how does a board vote if they don't have a quorum because the members are attending remotely? And
I don't know
that's,
the question.
Yeah.
so it's a timing issue, but she indicated we could vote as a matter of practice.
Yeah.
To allow it, and then the chair could decide who and why
Mhm.
members could attend remotely.
And it sounds like we could vote to decide on the number that we allow to be remote, one or more members, so we could actually vote on the number.
Okay, yeah, I think that's
As long as it's
Yeah,
over
what it says, yeah,
right, it's still be
So-
1/3.
so we could vote for just one or two, or,
So historically, this meeting has been canceled quite a bit
Mhm.
because you didn't have enough people. So to me, it makes sense to be able to keep moving the business forward is to have either adopt the 1/3 would be present. So how many members have to be here? Is it 6 or 8?
It depends on,
Depends on how many we have.
So, okay, so this year it's different because we have one more role
Yeah.
filled, which is great. Thank you,
Right.
Jill.
So I'm also wondering, because at our meeting in May, we adopted a best practice of HEAC allows council members and the public to attend remotely in keeping with RSA 91A.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if we take no action based on our adopted best practice.
But this
Do
is
we
about
need
the
to?
quorum, right? This
Right.
is what, this is different.
Okay.
That allows people to come remotely. This would
Right.
take it one step further, that if you don't have the 50, basically 1%, you can still form a quorum
Right.
with 1/3, and as long as you have 51% with the remote.
yeah.
I think that's important.
I think it's also important where we have vacancies. We may have people who legitimately, because of,
Right.
you know, can't get here, maybe they're up in the North Country or somewhat, then it would be easier to participate.
They might have people join, yes. We saw a dramatic increase in parent participation in IEPT meetings when they went remote. People don't have to leave their office or work and lose pay to go somewhere else, to drive somewhere to do a meeting. So yes, there's been some benefit. Again, I think it's important also to have people in person.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, you could do
Well, we
the
have to
idea.
have 1/3.
Right, so I'm
Right.
saying there's gonna be people present physically in space.
Right.
Tim, did you happen to receive any sort of suggested language on making that motion?
No,
Okay,
but it does say, so here says the state board covered by this paragraph may vote to allow one or more, so there is a vote required.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and you can't just default to the rewrite of that, you know, like.
Okay.
suggested.
okay, thank you. for hearing about that.
So if we created language that, so what you don't wanna do is get in a situation where, let's say we fill some of these other roles. Now that number changes and we have to make a new rule, right, do a new vote. You could create, right, come up with language that says something along the lines of that the state board, you know, agrees to 1/3 of the size, whatever the size of the board is.
Yeah.
At the time, being physically present in the space and 51, at least 51% with the virtual membership of the board present virtually in order to form a quorum. I mean, something like that, because, yeah,
Or could it be as simple as HEAC accepts RSA blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, so
Or
I think,
to do it-
and
is that
Jill
what you
might
did?
remember, but, at the non-public school advisory council, I believe it was something to the effect of. So it would be HEAC votes to allow one or more members who participate in meeting remotely. And that meets the requirement of this. You don't have to come up with a number. It's one or more, and then it would be up to. the
you mean
chair.
virtually, that to allow up one or more board members to participate virtually to form a quorum. Something like that,
Right.
Yeah.
correct.
got it.
And then it would be up to you able to, before each meeting, to say. Who's gonna attend remotely
Right,
and make the numbers work, and then there has to be a reason given why they can't attend, you know.
right,
So like Jill is in Keene. That's a long drive.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable? We thought you could decide that, so,
okay,
and I agree, the council would get more participation from the North Country and.
Yeah.
Which I've been trying to do with the non-public school advisory council because it's a long drive.
Yeah.
You know?
right, it is, yeah,
It'd be great to have representation on the council. you know,
absolutely.
So it was a simple motion to have a vote. But if you wanna work on language,
Well, couldn't we just say that we want to adopt what's stated in
Yeah.
that law?
yeah. I think-
Because that says right in it,
Yes,
everything we wanna say.
Yes,
I like yours, April, it's really simple.
What did I think?
You
I
simply said, let's adopt the rules as
Sure.
written in law, whatever.
Yeah, but
Whatever they're-
the rules state a vote has to happen.
No, no, we're
Yes.
gonna vote right now.
Right.
To
Adopt.
adopt.
Right, do you know what that RSA is? Tim, so we can make sure we have formally named it out in our.
HB 308.
Well, it's
308,
it's
yeah.
to amend RSA 91A.
Yeah.
:2.
RSA 91.
2.
But I guess I would. I'm a little confused by adopting an RSA you're already subject to.
No, we just have to vote to allow one or more
Yes.
members to, so really what we're
Right.
saying is. Okay, so let me just practice it, ready? I make a motion. To allow one or more members of the board to attend virtually in order to form a quorum to hold an advisory council meeting. There you go.
Let me see if, I'm gonna try to repeat this back, as if I got it right, how about that? HEAC allows one or more member, should it be member? Members,
Members.
okay, HEAC allows one or more members to attend remotely. To form a quorum and hold, so just say a meeting,
Advisory council meeting. Mhm.
or do you want it to say an
I
advisory
don't
council
know,
meeting, because
whatever you want to call it.
HEAC has advisory council in it.
Okay, so, yeah,
Yeah.
listen to you.
Yeah.
I
No, I'm
like it.
listening to you.
No, I like it. Make it simple.
Okay, HEAC allows one or more members to attend remotely to form a quorum and to hold a meeting, or to hold a meeting.
Yeah.
Is that what we have? Do you want me to do it one more time? Because I
You want
didn't
to say
hear the second
remotely or
yet.
virtually? What is it saying?
Remotely participate.
That's fine, use the
Okay.
language from that, yeah.
All right, so HEAC allows one or more members to attend remotely to form a quorum to hold meetings.
A
What we
meeting.
have? A meeting,
To hold
because a
meeting.
meeting limits it to one meetings. And a meeting,
But-
you guys want, Okay.
Repeat it again?
HEAC allows one or more members to attend remotely to form a quorum to hold a meeting.
Yes.
How about to participate? Oh, no.
No, just in order to hold the meeting.
Yeah.
Do we want to reference in accordance with?
Yeah,
Yes.
you could say the meeting.
In accordance with, or what's the RSA, Tim?
91-A:2.
Okay. HEAC allows one or more members to attend remotely to form a quorum to hold a meeting in accordance with RSA
Mhm.
91-A:2.
Perfect.
Is that Heather's motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, great. Any discussion?
Who seconded? Mike?
Sorry.
Mike.
Mike, hold it on.
Can everyone be remote then, or only a percentage?
The law the law says that 1/3 of the members
1/3
must be
present.
physically present. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, that's a good question. Right now it's 50 plus over 50%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments on a roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Heather,
yes.
Althea,
Yes.
and Jill.
Yes,
And I'm a yes, so the motion passes.
and
Thank
I'm
you.
stepping out for a 15-minute meeting at 4:01.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, I just want to bring up that our meeting time that we all said we would be here was 4 o'clock. It's now 4:01. Instead of just proceeding, I think it would be courteous to accept a motion to either adjourn or continue the meeting for a set period of time, because I want to be respectful of everyone's time here.
I need to leave,
Okay,
but I can't vote anyhow, so. who
Right,
cares?
right.
Can we, if we're talking about this for a minute, because Tim, you actually brought it up too when you and I spoke. This actually competes with the New Hampshire, not that this is important, New Hampshire Association of Special Ed Administrators meeting, which I love to come to. Remember that I was late a couple meetings, but
yeah.
again, if we have a quorum, it's okay. I feel stressed, like I want to make sure we can
Right.
meet. So,
Thank you.
I'm curious if we can either look at another day or do 3, but it's not realistic, honestly. The last time I was here, I left at 5:14 or something to go home to have that book club, so the dinner, so I just want to be respectful of the, what time, what's it, is it reasonable an hour and a half, or are we really talking about 2 hours, honestly? And then what's the right day or time? I can go with Fridays, I just would be probably a little bit later, because I left before we did the
I think
business.
that's what mentioned. The reason we picked, you always used to meet on a Thursday.
But you guys can't come,
We
right?
can't
Yeah, we
come.
don't want to do that.
The reps and the senators cannot come on a Thursday because we have session. That's what you picked Friday, which was fine with us. Now, Gelcar meets on Friday, all during the session. But they do Thursdays the minute session is over, so they like to meet on Thursdays, so they accommodate us by doing Fridays with Gelcar. So if you want to meet on a Thursday for some of the meetings, realizing that when session starts, we cannot be here on a Thursday, and you might want to go to Fridays.
Actually, I can do a Friday if it's not is this, what Friday is this, the third?
Third.
That's when there's this, I don't know, I mean, so Fridays we could keep. Does everybody else like Fridays? I mean, it wasn't
I
so
would point,
bad.
I would,
Friday night is late on Friday, I'll be honest.
Well,
I'll point out also that today is the first day of Rosh Hashanah,
Yeah.
Jewish holidays, and
People's
in the
participation.
future, I would like to respect those holidays.
Yeah, that would be really great too. Thank you, Althea.
Hello, Representative Kutab. Good to see your face. Althea, would you like to note the minutes that Representative Kutab joined us? Thank
Yes.
you. Fridays works well for me. I mean, I think it's important to talk about a date that works for everyone, that works, we just talked about.
I
Your
get
date
Fridays.
with meetings, do you guys want to hash that out now? Do you want to hash it out later?
We could send it around each other, because actually, if we met earlier. And it wasn't, is there a reason that it's the third Friday? Or just historically was? I mean, I like
I
the
don't
set
remember.
time of a month,
Okay.
it's just.
Can I
nice to know
suggest that we
the
do a
second-
poll, an online poll?
I like
and-
that, yeah. That's a good idea. Can we do that between this meeting and next meeting and plan to just stick with this? I don't want to hold us up, because the
Okay.
question is. Senator Ward has to leave. I'm willing to stay till 4:30 if we want to finish. This looks pretty.
I
quick
think
the
we'll
rest-
get through by 4:30.
No, but we can prioritize what we want to talk about.
Yeah,
I
okay, because there's a lot more.
But we can change the agenda, right?
Yes, we can.
We can prioritize that.
I don't know. What do you think?
I'm
Or-
open to staying to 4:30. I think originally we said we were going to do
Yeah,
4:30.
I thought
Somehow
we
it got
were too.
posted as 4,
Okay. 'Cause I think you need 2 hours.
at least,
Right.
yes.
You're only meeting once a
What
month.
time is it now?
It is now 4:05.
Yeah.
Is that a
Okay.
motion to?
I'm making a motion to continue the meeting to amend the meeting time to end at 4:30, or how about 4:35, which would give us 30
Okay.
more minutes to try to get through a prioritized agenda here that you can choose as the chair. That's what I'm making a
Second.
motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Okay.
Okay, on a roll call vote to amend the meeting in time to 4:35 with the prioritized discussion. Prioritized by the chair, motioned by Heather, seconded by Diane. Rebecca,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Althea.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, okay, thank you. Jill,
He stepped away.
Oh, stepped away. That's right. Okay, sorry. Yes, can I charge someone with being the timekeeper for us?
Yes, I got it, Mike? No, you got it.
All right. I want to fill you guys out with what you think is the most important. I would dare say probably the best practices, but we can delve into that.
Can I interrupt for a minute? I want to speak to House Bill 628 really quick if I can, because I actually do have to leave 10 minutes ago.
Yes, could you please go ahead and do that, Representative Kutan?
This is Representative Patterdell. We have the same K at the beginning of our name. I think, yeah, that's okay. I thought she had come into the room or something, but I didn't realize you were talking to me.
Yes. Patterdell, the wrong name. I'm sorry, Althea. And Representative Kutan. There I go again, Patterdell.
Patterdell, that's okay. That's okay. House Bill 628 was retained in committee, and I actually think it is kind of a dangerous bill for homeschoolers because it has to do with background checks, and there was a lot of concern that might mean that parents need to have background checks in order to teach their own children, or I don't know, you have a co-op in your home or something, and now do you have to have a background check because you have these children coming into your home? So there was a lot of confusion, but there is a subcommittee hearing on Tuesday, September 26th at 9 a.m. in the LOB at room 205. And Representative Cordelli, who is very friendly to homeschoolers, is the chairman of that subcommittee. And I put it on my calendar. I'll try to also attend that subcommittee hearing.
So are you asking, so you're bringing this up for discussion?
This is item
Yeah,
E on
no,
the
I know, I'm
agenda.
asking to respond. So is the intention here, so I would want to know a little bit more about this because I do think background checks are really important. Educationally. So is this, for example, does that mean that non-public schools, I wish Jill were here,
Yeah.
don't have to do background checks?
Correct, non-public schools, because I manage that program for the department, so
Yeah.
they're not required to do background checks.
Wow, okay, so that I'm just, okay, and then I don't know
Well,
what
no.
education providers are.
It's not about not doing background checks. It says a receiving non-public school or home education program that accepts students benefiting from scholarships, grants, or tax credits. That's
Okay,
where
so wait, that's, I wanted to hear the language bit, so,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm asking a couple of foundational questions, so.
Mhm.
So if, for example, in the case of Jill's school, so I didn't know that, so like if I'm I'm a Catholic high school, we don't have to do background checks, or we do?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, okay, so then that follows, any of that then follows that if anybody was taking it, it wouldn't matter, right? So I'm just surprised by this, that's all, sorry.
So as a technicality, only because I
Yeah,
think
tell me.
your reference was a Catholic high school, the Diocese of Manchester does require background checks for their
So they don't
working with children.
require, they can choose to, but it's not a requirement.
Correct,
It's just the best practice.
And I believe Prenda guides are also not required.
Pendas and Kai's, all the scholarship recipients are not required to.
So the scholarship
Yep.
are not considered federal funds? An EFA, if you're an EFA scholarship recipient, that's not.
No, they're not federal funds.
Why would we think this is a good idea? To
Well-
not have people have criminal background checks who are working with children?
Well,
That
I
just
think we have to
scares
be
me.
careful.
Ask a
think-
parent to have a criminal background check.
I'm not
because-
asking that. A parent who's educating their child at home, doing their own thing, and they may choose to have some lady down the road do art with their child or music, they have an absolute right to do that.
The
If,
concern in the committee was that I really do have to go. This starts to get down into providers of EFAs. So like if it was the vendors, they were starting to become worried about,
Yes, yes.
so it started to get messy really fast, so that's why it was retained. So we don't need to debate it right now. I just wanted you to know that it was retained,
Yeah.
that there were homeschool families up in arms, if you will, saying that this was a bad piece of legislation and didn't want it to pass, and that there is a work session on it. So if you want, you're welcome to come to the work session and, you know, or email the committee, the House Education Committee.
When is the
and
work session?
Let them know your thoughts.
I heard that that was a non-public session.
You could always come and you can always go to it. You can always attend. You may not necessarily be able to speak at it unless we decide that you're an expert and request some of your input. But it's always helpful to run into a state rep in the hallway and voice your opinion.
So the 26th, I thought it was the 28th, I have it somewhere.
Did you get your info on when the work session is?
I'm sorry, when is it?
Katie, you said that the work session was the 26th?
September 26th, 9 a.m.
Where is it?
The LOB, room 205.
Thank you. I'm not, I don't pretend, I am not pretending to be an expert on this. I don't know enough about it.
Experts on that. I just couldn't get there.
Mm.
And I have heard some home educators voice concerns that this bill could be amended in the way that it, you know, should it be amended, it would affect their home education program. So it's something that many families are watching.
Yeah, I get it.
Are there any other bills or LSRs you're aware of right now we should be aware of that may impact home education?
Not off the top of my head, and this is filing deadline ended 15 minutes ago, so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for giving us
That's
that.
great news, actually, isn't it?
Thank you.
It's always good when we're not submitting more laws.
I'm with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions about that at 4:13? Thank you for interjecting and making sure we're aware of that.
Okay, thank you. I am officially leaving, not that I can vote, so.
Thank you for
See you
joining
next
us.
time.
Okay, could we go ahead and ask Tim, can you give us an update, a quick overview of the
Yeah.
department? You're so good to give us a written.
Yes,
copy as well.
and so we addressed a number of these topics already. The rule revisions, item 2, which is now that they've been revised, I put how much bigger the webpage and all these associated documents and bring them into compliance with the rules.
I'm sorry, Tim, I'm
um,
having a little trouble hearing you through the microphone. Is there,
Yeah,
I'm
so.
not sure why.
Item 1, we went through the rule revisions already. Item 2, because of the rule revisions, I will need to update the department's webpage and associated documents to reflect any of those changes. Office of Adult Education, Sarah, I reached out very quickly. She has not had any movement on the rule revisions that we talked about regarding HEAC. But she did want to, just because of lack of staff, she did want to share that they added the GED as a high school equivalency testing option. And there are 4 sites test sites in New Hampshire currently, and online proctoring testing is available. And her office is offering a high school equivalency for schools webinar. And I attached the flyer. It is for schools, but I figured I'd share that with the council. I assume you can join if you want to do what they have to say. I assume the audience is for schools. We talked about the vacant HEAC memberships.
Yeah.
And then frequently asked questions, we'll mention my progress. So, they're on my
He's
list.
working on it. Okay.
And I did talk to the commissioner, there's been an item on the agenda about a technical advisory
Yes.
for access. I talked to the commissioner 2 days ago about that because it's kind of been hanging with him.
Right,
He's expressed to me that he does not want the department to issue a technical advisory on access issues because it's so nuanced that we would have difficulty capturing everything, and if we put it in writing, that might make it more difficult to work with districts on a one-on-one basis. And I don't know, Heather, if that would be your experience. It's simpler to work with the parent, and if somebody calls the department, maybe we can pick up the phone and
Yeah.
call the school. But if you start trying to list every little thing and you don't have,
And people, it becomes a rigid set of rules almost.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that, as you know, most likely the commissioner is not adverse to picking up the phone and chatting with the school district about a home education issue.
Yeah.
And so I think it's part of that training webinar.
That's
We'll
what I
speak to
think.
that as well.
Yeah.
But we're never gonna capture every little nuance
No.
about.
And once you put it in writing, then people are gonna look to that, that's the black and white, that's what they told us what to
Correct.
do.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
that's not actually accurate.
And as it's been explained to me by Liz Brown, our attorney, many times the department has no authority over school boards and adopting policies. We're not the school board police, and Liz tell. It's always the parents and the school board, and it's a due process.
Yeah.
There. And that's where it needs to be worked out. If it can't be worked out, then it can perhaps come to the State Board of Education. But there's an entire process to get there. The department has no authority to tell a school board that doesn't have a policy in place, for example. That they have to do it. There's no lever there for the department in the law. So, it makes it awkward sometimes in that regard for us to then provide technical assistance. That has no weight to it. So a lot of times it's just easier to have those one-on-one conversations.
Okay, thank
So I wanted to
Mhm.
finalize that so we could take it off the list.
Yeah,
I have a question about, on the website, their homeschooling says technical advisory 2018, which is pretty outdated. I mean,
Yes.
is there any way we could make the changes or take it off or something?
Yeah, and that will be part of
Okay,
updating the website with some other things on there about
Okay.
COVID and 2020-21
Yeah.
waiver. I
Yes.
saw that today.
Yeah.
That needs to come off.
right.
So
okay,
that hopefully it's just a matter of resources.
Mhm.
And as a point of practicality, I can tell you when I sat on the school board, I don't recall seeing technical advisories when they did come out. So it's not something that. in
They
my
go to
tenure-
school.
They
so-
do go to
Yeah.
schools, but
Schools
they may
use
not
them
make it to
all.
your school board.
Right, that's interesting, that, yeah.
So for example, we could write a technical advisory about the 315 rules. But the access law is the access law. We can't embellish it.
Right,
Gotcha.
And as if the department tries to make an interpretation of that, that's where the problems arise, because the district is within their rights to interpret it the way they see fit as well.
so this is 11A.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah. okay, I think it's just
Thank you.
training. That's the key, like the webinar, they can watch it over and over and over.
If we go to any other discussion on 11A,
Hmm.
technical advisory. 11B, best practices.
Yeah.
There's 3 sheets here. The first one says draft. This is what we just approved in our
Yeah.
amended minutes. Sounds like instead of approved, the word needs to be adopted
Yeah,
on here. Is everyone okay with approved being changed to adopted and then shared with? Is this an okay format to share with you for the website? Okay, so I can get on doing that. I don't know if we want to take any action on, if we go to pages 2 and 3. On the alternatives or things we didn't check out. I do want to say, at least to raise them for discussion. We did make a commitment at our May 19th meeting to come back and talk about some things. So I think at least we need to bring those items up.
well, and Althea brought up another one, which is if the meeting date falls on the date of a religious holiday or something, we want to be inclusive in our practices, so we would have an alternate date.
Right. So as captured, it was clarified. That posting additional materials beyond the agenda and posting recordings after the meeting will be readdressed at the next HEAC meeting.
Yeah.
And the council agreed. We didn't take a vote on that, but I think we were all in agreement. I mean, we have 15 minutes. I don't know what we're gonna get done, if anything, but
Yeah.
we did promise we would bring this back to light. Does someone want to speak about these things?
So.
I personally don't want to rush them because I want to give them due.
Oh,
Due
okay,
time
so
to really
for
get done.
consideration, so we're on the last page.
so were you starting with number 1? I mean, with that one, we're going to do
Well,
a poll on, right? We're gonna do an online poll?
right.
Yeah.
But we specifically said that we wanted to talk about posting additional materials beyond the agenda and posting recordings after the meeting.
Oh, you're skipping way down.
I am, because I want to be true to what we said. So, I mean, we are readdressing it by bringing it up if we decide there's not enough time to really have a,
So you're looking at
Discussion about
number
it.
9, 10, and 11. So number 9, the meetings will be recorded and included as part of the meeting's permanent record.
Or number 8.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I'm so sorry. Yes, Rebecca, you're right. So 8 is, we've skipped to number 8. So the notices, agendas, what was that earlier thing you read?
it was from the minutes
No, that you
That's
read earlier that was.
from the
bolded yellow?
attorney.
Yes,
That was.
so that was basically that you don't have to do it if it's for the
That's right.
purposes of somebody doing it. So that's
Correct.
important to know. So that's it's not required, because that was one of the issues that came up, as some folks thought that because it was a public meeting, it had to follow the same rules as all that. We now know based on her stuff, it doesn't. However, the community of home education parents are hopeful that what they're calling transparency, we all receive many emails from them to do the right thing, quote unquote, and provide these things. So that's really the question for us is, although they're not required based on what you read at the beginning of today's meeting, what is it, if we have enough time to talk about it, that we want to say we're willing to do it? Because once you say you're gonna do it,
Sure.
you have to do it,
That's
right.
right.
right? Because you want to be true to your word.
Right, and I think part of the conversation where we were going at the last meeting is discussing audio versus
Yeah.
the video recordings with concerns, especially of the home educators, that we're here volunteering like everyone else, and we have to bring our children. And if someone comes in and says, "Mommy, I need you. I volunteered for this, but my child didn't."
Mhm.
I don't want them on a public video, right? They need to retain the right to their privacy. So we were advised in the last meeting that there may be a bill that's coming up that may address this before we do about.
So the other way to
Recording some
go,
meetings.
I was at a meeting recently. I don't know if you, I have not looked into this, but I could between now and next time. Because I said in the meeting that I would do that for that meeting. If this is a recorded Zoom. It is.
Yes.
You can actually get the transcript of verbatim from Zoom at no cost if it's, and I'm sure they have the same kind of membership that a school district would, where you can run the meeting beyond 40 minutes. It's not the free version. That the entire transcript of the meeting is available, which
Uh-huh.
would literally answer this entire thing. I don't know that I could say that it actually is true. I've been told that it's true. So that potentially would resolve this issue of, if the issue is that people want to know what was
Right.
discussed or said, that transcript is the entire meeting from the minute it starts recording to the time it ends. I think we should look into that before we
I think
make
that's a
any
great
kind of
idea.
rules here,
I agree.
because that would resolve this whole thing about audio, video. You don't need any of that. You can have an actual document that is the record of the recording.
I
So,
think,
is that something anybody can access or just people?
I think we would, if we're agreeing to do it, the request people are asking is that this is posted when you post the minutes or whatever after, right? They want to see the stuff or know that they want to make sure that people are being transparent about what's occurring, right, in a meeting.
that's my understanding. And a lot of times you do gain a lot of insight from
100%,
hearing the
yes.
meeting
100%,
versus just reading the minutes.
right,
So-
and this would be the whole transcript, which would resolve all of it.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to find out,
Yes.
is that possible, and continue the conversation.
That's what I'm not sure. I'm not ready to make a stand
Yeah.
on this one way or the other, but I do
Okay.
know that people really would like something, whether, and I don't know if it's the capacity to put these things up
Right.
or not. We hadn't even looked into that. But I would like to be responsive to the community and explore a way, even if down the road, this stuff all becomes available. In the interim, instead of just minutes, which are, someone's reporting very graciously. Could you have a transcript of everything discussed? Yes, you would still have to read it, but if it's available electronically, right, it is accessible. Thinking about inclusion, a person could use a device on their computer or whatever that would read it to them if they needed it to. So again, that's an in-between solution, not able to do anything with it today, but I've heard that in the last week, so.
So do you want me to look into a Zoom transcript and availability with that? Okay.
We could, and I will too. I'm gonna do it for my other thing and I can let you know, Tim, if I find out before you do.
I think it's nice to know what the options are before we make a
100%.
decision.
I would too. Because that does take care of the entire, here's everything discussed from the beginning to the end of the meeting.
I would be interested if there's a transcript posted. As we know, the minutes are the legal record of the
Right.
meeting. If there was a written transcript posted, does that change any of the legality?
I can ask. you,
Because the
but I-
transcript is not approved by the council,
No, it's just a record of the meeting.
Right.
It's a-
but the minutes are.
It's been my understanding that the video is not the
No.
official record either.
Correct.
So
that's my
I-
understanding as well.
Right, so a transcript wouldn't be, it's simply the record of what was said during the meeting without the video.
And I'd be interested in the accuracy of that, because I'm assuming that's probably AI produced or something like that. So it would probably still need.
Should
to
be fun to check it
Yeah,
out, right?
Exactly.
It's worth looking into because I think technology was one of the issues.
Well, one of the issues, I'm wondering, should I be turning on closed captioning, which is the transcript,
Right,
right? So, yes, there's that. but-
yeah, I'm not even sure you have to do that though, actually. It was interesting, so we'll see.
Yes.
Just to note, Jill Grant has rejoined the meeting at 4:26.
Hi, Jill. What about, because I'm keeping a watch on time, Jill, we are going to end at 4:30 based on a vote.
4:35.
4:35, excuse me.
Yeah, we have a few
Um,
minutes.
Thank you. Give me a moment.
Yeah.
I just,
Good. Yes,
since we're still under number 8, I noticed that C includes the meeting materials being kept for a period of time. It's not included in A or B, but I'm assuming meeting materials would only be materials that are not already posted somewhere on the DOE.
some, part of that discussion we had last meeting was about the retention time, that we really should be silent on that and just default to whatever the department's timeframe is. But yes, the difference on that is the meeting materials.
Right.
And
So, yeah, I'm just looking at this. So 8 says the HEAC meeting notices, agenda minutes and annual report shall be published on the website. Then right below it, there's these proposed alternatives.
Right.
Okay. HEAC meeting notice, I don't see how that first one is different at all.
oh, the first one is different because it changes the acronym.
Oh, okay.
That's all it
And-
does.
Yeah, we want it to be that. So I would definitely say we would want to adopt A now. Because that's actually reflective of NHED. And we're already obligated, aren't we, with the meeting notices, agenda minutes and annual reports to put them
I
up?
don't know the names.
No?
No.
Yes, well,
Oh,
I don't think.
we adopted that. maybe
yeah, I
two
thought we
weeks
did, yeah.
Yes,
So
we did.
So just to
Yeah,
change the
can we-
acronym for
yeah,
NHDOE.
that's easy to do,
NHED.
right,
Yeah.
to start.
Okay,
And then we should consider B and C at our, put that as a first order of business at our next meeting
Right.
for new business.
I think this is gonna take more time.
I would agree.
okay. So you guys would
Yeah.
like to see it at the top of the agenda
Yes,
if there's nothing more pressing.
but today, yeah, today we could vote for the A part. I mean,
Okay,
it's just fixing something, amending.
Yes.
okay. So we have, is that an official motion, Heather?
Yeah, I'm just proposing that we accept A, the proposed alternative of A. Yeah,
8A, correct?
Yep. HEAC meeting notices, agendas, minutes, and annual reports shall be published on the NHED website.
Okay,
Second,
do we have a
I
second?
second
for
it.
that?
Rebecca seconds it, Althea.
Good to go.
Any discussion? Okay. Hearing no discussion on a roll call. Vote. Rebecca,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes,
Althea,
Yes,
Jill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
okay. And we'll consider the other ones and any other alternatives next time.
Okay.
Okay, what else? do we have?
Did we talk about, again, because we promised to talk about, we did kind of talk about it. We brought it up, but the meeting materials, we said we're gonna talk about that next meeting.
The meeting materials, whether they're recorded, audio, we're also gonna explore if they could be Zoom
So we want more
transcripts. We need more
information.
information before we do anything, and Tim is also gonna get some legal advice and technical advice around what's the capability of the website.
Okay. Would anyone like to? Wow, this is really messed up. Sorry about that, guys. On 5B, not sure why it says B instead of A. This is changing the acronym and just inserting the word notices. Since we're working on correcting acronyms just for consistency.
Mhm.
Would
Mhm.
anyone possibly be interested in making a motion to adopt 5B?
Yeah, perfect. Motion to adopt 5B with the changes.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Heather,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes,
and I'm a yes, so we've adopted that one.
Nice, beautiful.
Great.
Right.
All right, so we are at 4:32. Is there anything in the next 3 minutes? We had new business, no new business. Our next meeting is, we did present for informational items. We did present the HEAC annual
Yeah.
report to the State Board of Education. Mike presented that on July 20th. And then announcements, our next scheduled meeting is October 20th, if needed. That's the placeholder meeting. And then we have a November meeting where we're anticipating to see everyone on November 17th, 2023. No, we had a public comment, but let the record reflect there's no public present for a public comment. Does anyone see a need for a non-public session?
I don't.
You can ask anything.
Thank you, madam. Clarity on the next meeting,
Yes,
2:30 to 4:30.
yes, I believe that was our original
Right,
intent,
okay.
2:30 to 4:30.
So my
Yes.
fault. So,
Yeah.
And is there a meeting in October or? is
That's
that
what
to
I
be
was curious
decided?
about. Good job, Tim.
Yeah.
Like-
So typically it's every other
Yeah.
month and we use that as a placeholder. So if we do need to meet, as of right now, do you guys want to meet in October or can we wait until November to address the best practices? You know, we could always call
Yeah, it's up to
the
you
meeting
guys.
if we need
It's up
to,
the council.
but unless someone feels like we should meet in October, my intention would be that we resume in November. But we never know what could come up between now and then.
Just to keep it as a placeholder.
Right.
I'm fine with doing, does anybody feel the need that I think we need time to get that information.
Mhm.
Right. Right. I think at this time, we don't, but we're a month out, but certainly if
Yeah.
some emergent issue should come out.
Yeah.
I would send an email out to the council.
Asking if we can.
Just,
Yeah,
yes,
just keep that date.
And just as a reminder, the council can call a meeting in 24 hours. notice.
yes,
At any
an emergency meeting. Does it have to be emergency?
No, it's not an
It doesn't have to be
emergency.
an
No,
Yeah.
you need
Okay.
24 hours public notice,
So one
Okay.
scenario,
proper posting, so I would do
Yeah.
that, but if you let me know, so you're not. If something comes up and you guys want me, we can do that, you don't
Okay.
have to be. Holding to the third Friday is for the convenience of the council,
Okay,
so you can always vary from that if you need to, with the agreement of the council, so.
okay,
so one
Just you have
scenario
preference.
I would add there is, let's say, for example, what if we actually kept in communication over the next few weeks? Because I know this is a hot topic in this community. And let's say we actually got some of that information, perhaps we don't meet from 2:30 to 4:30, but if we had enough information to actually come up with a proposal and actually vote on it, we could have a shortened meeting, like an hour meeting, focused solely on that as an agenda item. I don't know. I don't think we're prepared to do
Right.
that or say we want to do that. I'm
Okay.
saying that if you as the chair and we're communicating with each other via email to you, after you send out the stuff and say, hey, we've got answers to that, or
right.
we could do that and take care of it as its own topic. I don't know.
So I think we have to be careful about how we communicate right in emails because we don't want to hold a public meeting. via
No,
email.
no.
And I don't think
no,
you're suggesting
No,
that.
I'm suggesting
all.
that we let you know we have the information. I don't know how long it will take to actually. do
I'm
it.
happy if if the information is passed to me to put it out and just put on there, this is for informational
Right,
purposes only,
Right.
right? But my understanding is any member can request that we hold a meeting.
yeah, so
Prior to our next
let's stay
scheduled
with
meeting.
November at this point, unless something comes up.
And the state board this spring did exactly what you're talking about, they had one agenda item they had to deal with. They had meetings.
Yeah, I just, cause there's so many things on these agendas. that you really, this could be 3 hours, easily,
Oh, yes,
right,
yes.
okay.
It is 4:36.
We did great.
If there's no other items, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Mike?
Diane, how you doing?
Second.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, any other questions or discussions? So that's a motion to adjourn, Mike. You made the motion, and was that Jill is the second? Yes, okay. On a roll call vote. Althea,
Yes.
thank you. Jill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Let the record reflect that we adjourned at 4:37 PM. I'll see you all next on November 17th,
Yes.
2023.
Wow. And
Well-
Jill and Diane, welcome. It's so nice to have you guys.
Getting stuff.